program is produced using the resources of Public Media Network in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Learn more at publicmedianet.org.
Welcome to Connecting Communities, a podcast about the environment where we live, work, and play. We talk with individuals from our community and the greater Kalamazoo area who have a positive impact. I'm your co-host, Patrick Hirschberger, with David Benek.
Hello.
Today we're joined by Joel Oliver, founder of Yes, There Really Is a Kalamazoo meme page.
Hello.
Hey, Joel. And Tyler Dancer from Toxic Action Lab.
Hello, hello.
Howdy.
Hey there. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Yes, There Really Is a Kalamazoo meme page. How did it get started?
You know, it's funny. I got into social media marketing promotion stuff because of music, because I'm a DJ. That's how I know Tyler, actually.
Okay.
And, you know, at one point, I just decided it'd be really funny to have a niche meme page dedicated to Kalamazoo. I don't know if you're familiar. There's a couple, like Planned Parenthood for Grand Rapids and Lansing Facts for Lansing is hilarious. And I was a big fan of them going back like 5 years before that. Always been a big fan of memes in general. And, you know, I took what I had learned from social media promotion, marketing stuff, and tried to apply that to a meme page. You know, obviously hyper-focused on Kalamazoo issues, Kalamazoo community stuff. And, you know, I was shocked to learn that I actually did know some stuff about social media marketing because it kind of blew up a lot more than I ever anticipated it would initially.
Wait, did it start pre or during COVID?
Right before COVID. Like,
right before COVID.
Yeah. Like what? 8 months, 10 months before.
Yeah.
August 2019, somewhere. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, and that it took off really rapidly. Like I said, it continued to grow, at a real rapid rate, and just shocked me. Like I said, because you know I was promoting myself for DJing and the parties that I throw in Kalamazoo. It worked, but it never really popped off like the meme page did. But yeah.
Well, I would say it struck multiple nerves. You know, like on top of it just being a place where people got to blow off steam and laugh. It became like there was some serious discussion points,
right?
That people got into honest discussions on those. On the
yeah,
page.
There was a lot of good interactivity in the community, right? I think a lot of different groups of people interacted that probably normally wouldn't through that humor and engagement and bringing up topics that are maybe controversial or maybe get people talking. Yeah.
Well, you said you come to this from music. So do you have any background in comedy? How do you hit the right notes of not taking something too far, but taking it far enough that it works?
I was thinking about that, and I really apply the same philosophy that I apply in music with DJing, because it's like, oh, let me just try this, put out a little balloon, see if anybody likes that. Oh, did that work or didn't that work? And then it's also my background in science. I'm a biology major in college, and I tend to think of things as little experiments and, A/B trials, like, well, did this work or does that work? And, you work from there, and, do I get negative comments? Did I, maybe pick the wrong side on something or make a joke that was a little over a line for some people? I've definitely learned from some bruises and bumps along the way, and it's one of those things. It's funny, I had a football coach back in high school. I always think back to Coach Sayers. And he said one time we were trying to come up with a slogan for our team for that year. And he came up with one, and we were all like, wow, that's really great. And he said, I just throw a lot of crap at the wall, and some of it sticks and some of it doesn't. And I always think about that, That's all you can do is, try to keep being creative and, moving forward. I don't know. I don't have a background in comedy. I've toyed with the idea of doing, like, open mic stand-up stuff just to see if I'm any good at it, but it kind of gives me some nerves when I think about being on a stage with a microphone. I can do turntables, but that's about it.
So you mentioned you're both DJs, right?
Yeah.
How did you just like play at the same gigs, or how did you meet?
How did we meet? I don't know when we first met, actually.
I think it was through my old partner Nigel.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Nigel One. He was a local DJ who plays around here. You know more. You know more of his history than I do.
Yeah, Nigel actually originally from North Carolina, Asheville area, and he and his wife and their family, relocated to Kalamazoo, and his wife worked at Bronson actually. And we had met through DJing, and I started doing parties with him actually at Fire Event Center on the south side, if you're familiar. And he and I would do these parties there, and that's the first time I remember meeting you was outside of one of my events and being like, whoa, Tyler Dancer. Because Tyler's actually, in the music scene in the world, he's a much bigger deal than I am in any way, shape, or form. Like, oh, come on, don't sell yourself short. Like, Tyler's been to Europe. He has deep roots in music, his older brother as well. So it's crazy. Everywhere I go in Detroit, I bump into people that know Tyler. Or I bump into Tyler. So it's like, it's one of those things. When we met, you hit it off, I think, pretty quickly. And it's been cool ever since, like 10, 11 years now, I think.
For sure. Like, Kalamazoo has a lot of really deep electronic music roots, especially on the north side of Kalamazoo. Jay Denham, Donald Knox, this is his record label t-shirt right here.
Yeah.
Sonic Mind Records. And it went all around the world. And it's kind of funny, like, you almost, sometimes when you're in Europe, you can drop a name of a Kalamazoo DJ and they'll know him a lot faster than they might know him here in Kalamazoo.
Yeah.
And so we've been trying to change that a little bit. You know, we want Kalamazoo to be proud and to finally see, like, because like the love that we actually get is coming from, like, all over the world with this music. It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy how, like you said, people are known internationally more than they're known in their own city.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
How did some of this through DJing turn into activism for you?
Well, for me, like, it was mostly like just through school in my degree. So like my undergraduate degree is in psychology, and I had worked in doing different like social justice work as a student, and I always like loved my community. And there were just, honestly, the funny thing about it is when I went to Ann Arbor from Kalamazoo, I started meeting people from Kalamazoo that I had never met ever, and it felt like they came from a different Kalamazoo than me. And so I feel almost like that's kind of how I stumbled into this situation with this air quality too. Yeah. Is because like I grew up on the north side, and there was just, it was nothing but love to me about the north side. The north side gets a bad rap a lot, but it's not the north side that I saw, that I hear about from certain people sometimes. And
well, I mean, a lot of that's just unbridled racism.
It is, yeah. and it's a lot of messed up history, or just like, and that's kind of like how the music thing is separated, and we're trying to do a better job with that now, which has been incredible. But anyway, like it kind of was interesting because I had been living in Europe, and then I came back to the United States, and I smelled the air again, and I guess I realized, like, dang, it smells really bad over here, man. And what's going on? Yeah. And why is it so loud at night? And, since I'm a producer, I use like microphones and different things. Like, it's messing up my recordings. Like, a lot of people in Kalamazoo didn't realize I was DJing on FM radio in London from the north side of Kalamazoo. And I couldn't always do my work because the factory was so loud. So I was always
just crazy. How far are you away from the factory?
Not very far at all. Not far at all. A couple blocks. Yeah, a couple blocks.
Yeah.
It would literally mess with your recording.
Yeah, for sure. Huh. Yeah. And because like if you go, and I wrote some songs about it that I never put out. Like, because it's funny, on the WWMT, they got the whoosh in the night. They used to call it the whoosh in the night. Yeah. If you ever heard of that.
Yeah.
And it was always make me laugh because they would always say, people on the east side called in. And I'm like, well, why didn't the north side call in? And so that's kind of how I fell into this activism, because I was like, wait a minute,
You're
I'm
living in
seeing
it.
something
Right.
that I've been living in, and people have been living in it for so long
Yep.
that they're not realizing what's happening here. And since I've been out of it long enough and I came back, it was obvious. It was so obvious that I had to say and do something about it. And that's how it fell into the activism for me.
Well, and you've definitely tackled some of that with memes.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, really what happened for me was, like I said, it kind of blew up a little more than I thought it would, took on a life of its own. And then it was like, all right, what can I do with this? And it's like, well, I want to, promote causes that I care about, try to improve the city, try to improve the community in ways that are good for everybody. And, promote businesses and things, causes that I care about or like. And yeah, that's really what's happened since then. I mean,
Right. Joel was the perfect person to talk to about it. But oops, am I supposed to say that?
yeah, no.
It's out now. No edit.
Because the funny thing about it is, because the funny thing is, it's like we're DJs, like our first thought is we love our community. We want to bring music to the people. We want to have a great time. We don't like to see bad things, like people hurting like that. And
Yeah.
when we go to his parties, it's
I was
cool.
thinking, is there like a connection, like the creativity of being a DJ that flows into the creativity of coming up with the memes? Is there anything similar there?
But that's what I was thinking about, because we're trying to that was my thought about linking up with Joel, and I hadn't known that he was the guy behind the page at first, and I was like, oh, it would be you. So that was kind of the funny part, because I'm like, okay, that's the DJ. That's a DJ. You're trying to make somebody happy and have a great time and feel comfortable, but also put something in them too, because part of what we do, is storytelling. When you mix and long form music, a lot of people don't get into. You go on TikTok, you listen to something 20, 30 seconds. The DJ plays an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, you fall into something. And so it was perfect. He knew how to get a snapshot of some memes. It was like, okay, Joel was the meme guy. I know he's got the pull in my hometown because I didn't have it here, but Joel did.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I can talk to Joel and he'll be able to help me get the word out for the north side. We can't have 526% emission increase for the packaging plant right now. People are dying. It's not cool. And this was our perfect way of, spinning it in a way to where we could have a positive impact for our community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's totally the same thought stream or whatever you want to call it, creativity, just trying to keep that creative mindset and, apply it to everything we do. Like you said, that really that art of storytelling, whether it's through a set when I'm DJing or through a narrative with a photo and, a little small amount of text even to, paint that huge picture if you can.
So I'm a historian, and I know you work at the library.
Yeah.
So, I look at memes, and I think these are like 19th century political cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can say something in a way that you can't say in print, or you can't say serious, but you can say it in this humorous format and make an impact that just really lasts.
Yeah, totally. I tend to think of myself when I'm doing it like more of a journalist. Like I do my research, I talk to my sources, I get the facts, and then try to come up with an idea and paint it with some humor, like political cartoon or absolutely in the same thread.
Well, and I mean, you mentioned research on that, and I think too when you're doing that, I mean, memes can be a lot of things. They can be misinformation, they can be straight propaganda. There are all of these things, right? But they can also be very informational. So I mean, on the ones that you might have I don't want to say overstepped, but is there some that you've just straight up got wrong?
Oh, that's a fun question. I don't know.
Or how do you judge that?
It's difficult to say. I mean, I will say one time I definitely 100% got it wrong. I was trying to make a silly joke because obviously there's a lot of dispensaries in Kalamazoo, And the name for Kalamazoo is Native American. What tribe? Is it Potawatomi? And if you Google that or, do an internet search for that, you can get a bunch of different interpretations of what Kalamazoo translates to. And I tried to make a joke because one of them is smoky waters or something relating to smoky water because of the river.
Right.
And so I tried to turn that into a joke about all the dispensaries, and it went over like a lead balloon. And I took a lot of heat for it. And it was funny because I was actually on vacation overseas. And my significant other was like kind of yelling at me to like put my phone away and enjoy myself on this hike we're trying to have. And I'm like, I really made a lot of people mad. Oh crap. Like, oh crap. I'm like backpedaling, apologizing to every thread. Like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. I'm just some guy that posts on the internet. I'm sorry. So yeah, that was one that really sticks out. The bike lane thing, that was a hot one. That I kind of
still a hot one. It's like an ongoing joke. Like any Casey Reddit post, like you read, somebody just randomly throws bike lanes, and it's just like a laugh track. Like you just right. You just like you just it's almost like a side joke you just throw at people.
Yeah, but that's important to be able to self-reflect and know. Yeah, if you're going to do timely social commentary, humor, you're gonna push that line.
Absolutely.
You're gonna accidentally overstep sometimes, and if you can own that mistake, and
Well, we're human. I mean, like we make mistakes.
That's what I try to
own
do.
it and you just keep moving.
Keep it moving. Let it roll. Learn my lesson and move on. Yeah.
How do you feel like some of the discussions like have positive effects on the community? Like at least like some. You don't have to necessarily give examples, but like. It's interesting to see how like people can just for lack of better words like shitpost on memes, but then like you continue from there to see some like relevant conversations that have data that people are giving. Some experts pop in because people can't help themselves.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
you see a lot of people saying a lot of things, and people that don't normally post that are experts are like, nah, I'm gonna weigh in.
Right.
And that happens with memes.
Yeah, it's always. One of the pots I enjoy stirring sometimes is like when I see that there's multiple different groups all dedicated to the same cause, because it's like generally there's like some weird bad blood between them, or they disagree about how to approach it. And like you're saying, like the river is generally one of those hot topics. I've posted like stuff like really early on. I think I posted something that was like almost propaganda-ish, because it was like I think an MLive article or something like that, maybe Channel 3 even, they can be fun, about how much the river had improved and the environmental, all these numbers from the EPA were improving dramatically and blah blah blah. And I posted this thing about how like, good news, we can go swimming in the Kalamazoo River again or something like this. I don't know.
Did you actually tell people to eat the fish?
Yeah, something like this. And man, I had the comments blowing up with every all the different community groups dedicated to the clean water and how it's not very, or maybe
But I mean, that's kind of seems like the point.
Right, and that's generally my goal with it, not to like pretend like I have some grand scheme or plan for everything, but yeah, I usually just want to create a conversation, and that's the goal. Not take it too seriously, but
it's insightful though to recognize that if there's like 4 groups that are all addressing the same issues, there's a reason there's 4 and not one.
Not one, and they're all, and
because
it's
they don't want to
like,
work together.
Come on, aren't you all trying to head in the same direction here? What's going on?
Yeah.
I mean, I think birds of a feather. It's kind of that syndrome, which I think I think if you look here, for our environmental groups, there's definitely people that approach things very differently.
Absolutely.
And they're the goals are very similar. It's just the actions taken are very different. That's fine.
Right.
I mean, it takes all kinds of people to get things accomplished, and sometimes you have to attack things from different angles, or sometimes there's just blatant disagreements and people fight.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's just personality.
Yeah.
People don't. Some people just don't get along.
Those people.
Those neighborhood groups.
Yeah. Neighborhood groups. That's all.
Have you ever had like pushback from neighborhood groups with stuff that you've done?
No, not neighborhood groups. No.
Okay. But you have had pushback.
Oh yeah, I've been threatened with lawsuits a number of times. Anything panned out? No, it's funny. I have a good friend from college who's an attorney, and we actually sued the state together in federal court and won. So he jokingly is on retainer for me, and I can use him whenever I need. And generally, all it takes is one threatening email from him, and they never reply. We did have somebody that was like putting, I don't know if they're using AI or what to generate these legal response documents, but they were hilariously bad, and he was. My attorney friend Steve was having a great time replying, very serious tones, and yeah, he always enjoys replying on behalf of a meme page because he just finds that premise hilarious to begin with. So
Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of this is, this is speech, right?
yeah,
Like,
it's
you're not
protected speech. I'm not defaming folks in any way, shape, or form, or committing any other.
But you're also more often than not, you're following the rule if you punch up.
Yeah.
And the people in power know that they could always threaten legal action because the people who aren't in power usually don't have the resources to respond to threat of legal action.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Car dealerships.
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like the crazy thing that had happened with my situation. Because, so when I approached Joel, part of why I was getting so creative about everything was because I literally had someone give me information about a lawsuit about the emissions on the north side, and I talked to the lawyer for 15 minutes, and the next week my boss comes in and shows me a over 100-page document, Dancer versus United States of America. And I did not ask for that. I did not. I thought I was.
How did you feel when you saw that?
I was gutted. I was absolutely gutted because that's not how I do things. I'm a person who, if I see a problem, I want to engage with what that problem is. I will ask. I will go up to that person and ask or say, "What's up?" I'm the guy who will. Actually did, so I did. I felt, let me put it this way. I did everything I would have done between a lawsuit and me having a concern. I did all the in between. I spoke at the city commission. I tried to engage my community. I went to Joel, how can we talk to the community about this issue? Because there's so many reasons why these issues end up resonating with all of us.
Yeah.
And so that's why we went with the jokes, and this lawsuit was on environmental racism. And I honestly think that that was a legitimate thought. Especially with some of the things that the people who had built these factories, if you go back in the record of things that they said, it's pretty damning. But we learned that, there's a whole lot of other ways to present it to. And if I had personally wanted to put myself on a lawsuit, I would have made a lawsuit about the health outcomes of my neighbors first, before I had made a lawsuit about environmental racism. That would be a part of my lawsuit, absolutely, or a concern that I had. But to have seen that and then have the names that were on that lawsuit, like people that I had respected, like Bobby Hopewell, the mayor, who I thought I had really liked, Gretchen Whitmer, who I really liked. I'm like, whoa, that's my name up against people that I like. What is going on here? And so I felt really exploited. And so I was just looking for creative ways to, kind of exonerate my name, or is that the wrong word? Or help.
Well, it sounds like you were. I don't fully understand the situation, so correct me if I'm wrong here. But were you guided into this situation, improperly? So you weren't given the full picture.
I mean, I literally went on a website. I had a phone call with somebody told me to call the lawyer. There's a class action lawsuit. I called them, talked to them for 15 minutes about what I felt was going on in my community. Went on a website. They asked for all my family members who had been there and living, and my family has owned the home I'm in since 1901. So we're there before the factory existed. And, my family got here in the Kalamazoo area in 1863. And so they tried to use our history to, start the timeline of the lawsuit. And it, they were speaking facts, but it wasn't what I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask for that. So I was looking for ways to, because I was getting pushback. Like he was getting pushback for the memes. I started getting pushback for a lawsuit, a federal lawsuit. I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And so that's how I reached out to Joel, and that helps, really put some pressure up off of the situation.
Well, so go from that to, what we try to do with the show is, like, we're talking about how communities come together. Before we got on air, you were telling us a little bit about how you see this page doing that. So I think that's important.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I just see it as really more of a community center, a place where people can come together and, like you said, the different experts can weigh in and give their opinion and, speak their facts. I try to, as best I can, filter and find good sources and talk to folks other than Tyler, and, get my set of opinions straight at least, and, then try to put a creative, funny spin on it that'll hopefully, get people engaging with the content, as they say. And, it's really all about just raising awareness or, getting the broader community more involved, interacting with one another.
Do you have to moderate much?
Yeah, I very heavily moderate.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to keep things rolling. Otherwise, Facebook will moderate for me and it won't be good.
You're getting ahead of the algorithm?
Yeah, it beats me up sometimes, even still, yeah. I've made some enemies.
I mean, if you're putting yourself out there, that's, I think, naturally going to happen, especially if you have a voice, and it's to be expected. But I mean, like, if you don't have a voice, then I feel like that's also taking away some of your power as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or if your voice gets used in a way that you weren't intending it to.
Yeah.
But
How do you take it back?
Right. Well, that's how that was our thought. Like, well, if we can make light of this situation somehow. So, like, we literally, we sat around. It was like, what, 4 of us guys?
Yeah.
And brainstormed about, like, what memes we might make. Had some brews, and just, like, talked about, like, well, how do we, like, make a joke out of, this tragic situation that we're dealing with here, and, use the tools in our bag. Because, again, we're DJs, we're trying to spread love and joy and peace. And, it's like suddenly, because I suddenly was like steeped in this, wait a minute, everybody thinks I'm this super serious guy. I'm Mr. Serious around town all of a sudden. And I'm like, that's part of it. But, I'm still trying to be, I'm trying to have fun too and like spread light. And so like it was perfect to be able to, meet up with Joel and bam, memes page.
So talk a little bit about like the meme lab. Like how you just mentioned like a few of you got together, sat around, talked about like what is the process of that? Like do you have where do you begin? Do you begin with like a thought? Do you begin with a text? Do you begin with an image?
It can start a million different ways, really. I mean, I often just, will have little sessions where I sit around with some friends and, maybe drink something and talk a little bit and just try to come up with, brainstorm ideas, topics that I haven't covered or things that would be funny and go from there. I usually then try to hunt down images that work. Sometimes it starts with a picture or image that I get or that I take myself and go, this is something I think is funny or people will find funny. But yeah, it doesn't always work the same way. I mean, it's creativity.
Yep.
I've gotten in the habit of carrying around a notepad with me, like a physical paper notepad, so I can jot down ideas as they hit me rather than lose them, because that happens a lot, right? But yeah, it's kind of it can be kind of all consuming sometimes. When the ideas start flowing, you just have to stop and write them, make sure to write them down.
Tyler, in your work as an activist,
Mm-hmm.
how does this fit into that as a tool?
The memes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, engage the community. That's exactly what I need to do. Is make sure that I get that information out there. And it's interesting. I sometimes like, and it was that the way that people perceive things thing that came with me, because I was like, people started calling me an activist, and I was like, am I an activist? Like,
You are now.
I am now. Like, I felt more like I was trying to be a librarian. I was trying to practice my profession, which was like, okay, here I am. I just saw my grandparents were born in like the 1910s. I live in my great grandparents' house. Like, I've seen generations of people come up in a space. This is my family. This is my community. These are my people. When you go to our family reunions, the whole neighborhood is there. Plus, and I mean, so for me, it was just kind of like, I'm doing my job as a librarian, as a meta profession. It's a meta profession. It doesn't matter what. Any type of society it is, librarians exist. There's going to be somebody who's going to organize information and keep stories, and you're going to need that person in any type of avenue at all. Like, even DJs need librarians. We are librarians of music.
Absolutely.
We have to catalog our music. We have to know how to find it.
Know where to
we
get
have
it.
different formats, all that type of stuff. So to me, it was just always interesting being called an activist, because I felt like I was just saying what I was seeing. And then I had to use the tools of the society in order to be able to make an impact. And in that case, it's science. We work with the Toxic Action Lab and students and academics and research methods in order to test soil. So right now we're working in Otsego, if you've heard of the Otsego Story Project. That's kind of what blossomed out of all of this, which is incredible that we have Otsego working with us to tell their story, and that's going to have a big impact on us here in Kalamazoo, because the factory's there, where the factory's here, and that history is all tied up. We're all tied up together, and it's going to bring, I think, a lot of people together, and that's just, that's the bridge building we do as activists, artists, DJs, because when we're out on the dance floor and it's dark, you know what I mean? It's like, we're not worried about, all the other stuff in the world, like it's, you spread love, you spread joy, but then there's those moments where, okay, we got to get serious. And this is our community, and this is what's affecting us. What do we do about it?
Yeah.
And it should be simple. It's not political. That's the main thing. It's just not political. It's lives, and it's health. It's public health. So that's where it comes in for me with the memes. Was if I can tell a joke and help make a impact and bring sides of the community together, because we're all seeing the same truth, and the joke somehow tells it, right? You know what I mean? It shines the light on on all of us, to where we can finally have community and speak on it from like every direction that we're experiencing it in. And I think that was definitely the cause and effect impact that we had through the pandemic, because they were certainly definitely burning a lot more than they had been over at Graphic, and we were all smelling it, and they were smelling it much further away than they were used to. And there was like, okay, this isn't just a North Side problem anymore. Now it's a Vine neighborhood problem. Now it's a Western Hill problem, and living in this valley, and like, we went to school around here. It's like, we learned about the Kalamazoo Valley and the Kalamazoo River and all of our natural resources, and the environment was a huge thing. And we had magnet schools, and like, we went to international study school. It's like, no crap, I went and did international stuff because they instilled it in me when I was a child. Like, so, we played the worlds of dance music too, so, we vibe with it because that was our community. And now we're protecting our community with clean air. That's basics. That's the basics. And also the history too is important, because we're proud of our factory workers. we're proud of our history as engineers of industry, and I'm proud of my grandfather. I'm proud of my father who worked in the paper factory. I don't have any bad feelings about that type of thing. It's just that now that we know better, we got to do better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bringing that creativity is really important. Like, if people know anything about the environmental group Earth First, they think of them as like the really crazy radical tree spikers. I mean, but when they were really effective, it was because their demonstrations had humor, and that humor made a movement, and people wanted to be involved because it was fun, but it also got people's attention because it was creatively different. If we have, think about the protests today, when people try to be creative, all they're doing is using tropes and recycling the same images that we've used for 30 years. There's a reason it doesn't get people excited. It's not creative. It's just using tired imagery. So I think that's one of the things that I love about the way you use the memes, is that you're hitting issues that aren't new. I mean, you talked about the paper mill has been a problem for ages.
Years,
It's not
It's
new.
a part of our history,
Right,
but
yeah.
it's
but
just so
if you
embedded.
can use a creative spin on it, people are going to stop and look.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and get them to think about it in a different light, maybe, or see it in a different way.
Right.
Or,
It's because it's crazy how we are all looking at situations from different angles. Like, I didn't see it the same way that my granddad did, just making a paycheck at the factory, or my dad, or what I mean?
like, same way here.
And like, so I'm sure it was crazy when you suddenly have an environmentalist child, because I wrote Al Gore like when I was like 6 or 7 about environmental issues. Like, I was ready to do this like from the jump. So like, it just, it's crazy to me how we can like see it from different angles, but then we gotta just find a way to do better. And if we can laugh about it, or it helps, but it's always from the intention of healing. And I feel that that's what we try to do as DJs. When we try to play, we're out there, we're trying to heal, we're trying to, good spirits, feel great, because look at how bad things are at times. It's like you can't even breathe clean air in certain spaces. So we always find a way to lift the spirits.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
even
Yeah.
after a train wreck, right?
We were talking about protests, and I think some of the most effective protest signs have been memes. Recently, there's been some solid stuff going on, but I mean, if I think you have to have not only a creative eye, but you have to have an eye for design a lot, because you have to know where people's eyes goes. You have to be, and it has to be quick. Like I am by far, memes are not my specialty. But at the same time,
me either.
What
Yeah.
you're saying as far as like history, like as an artist, that attracts me constantly, and I think there's a need for that. I was at a recent event where it was a bunch of creatives brought together by the city, kind of for the future planning for 2035, and a key factor that a lot of people mentioned was important to them was, how do we bring a lot of this back to our history? How do we show history through our parks, through our art, through music, through theater? And I think we do the same things, because memes are like inflection of the news.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, like by default, this is about Kalamazoo, which I mean, we're just some small, Midwest city in Michigan.
We're not just some small city.
That I love, that I passionately love. But like we're not a Chicago. We're not. If you look at number wise, we're not Grand Rapids, but we are unique. We are.
very unique.
We are true to ourselves in that element, and we have unique history. But we also have history that mirrors a lot of other industry towns across the Midwest that have similar problems. So as much as it could be unique, it's unfortunate that a lot of those problems happen at the same time in a lot of different places.
Definitely. Yeah, the industry tended to do what it did everywhere, not just in Kalamazoo.
Well, and it
Yeah.
still does. I think,
Yeah.
industry now that does things that the science might not have caught up with it, or there's not enough noise for it to catch up with.
Right.
We'll be suffering the effects long after, our kids are grown up and in retirement homes. I mean, unfortunately, the Kalamazoo River is not something that's gonna be safe to eat the fish from anytime soon. Even with all the cleaning that's taking place and the billions of dollars that have been put into it.
You said something earlier about librarians being a meta profession. So this goes to what Patrick was saying. With history and the memes and looking at what's going on, it's about the questions you ask. I mean, history is infinite. I mean, literally, there's any possible thing that has happened in the past. So it's not that we can ever talk about history because it's too big. It's the questions we ask result in the stories that we tell. So that's, and as a librarian, you're trained to think critically. You're trained to look at all of this information and make sense of it. And I feel like that's a skill that should translate into being able to make these memes. It's like, how do you ask the questions that are going to come up with something?
I mean, that's the interesting part of it is like, I think it's not just being a librarian, but it's just because we've been here.
Right.
I think like it's like my family's been here a long time. Joel's granddad, I think, is a really interesting guy.
Yeah, he owned a trucking garage downtown. It's the pallet factory or whatever it is now. Across from Port Richards there.
Yeah.
So
that was my grandfather's.
So just having like history in Kalamazoo, it's like we've all had the same cause and effect. We've all had this. We share history. There's a shared vein of what we experience and go through. That there's gonna be something inside of us that we've seen or we know or we feel, and that's how memes work. That's why they're funny to people. That's why we like have a response to them and like.
Well, also how it hits. I mean, like a lot of times when I look at those memes, I might laugh at the same time I feel a lot. And I mean, it's and sometimes it's like, the feels can go either way, But then it's interesting to see, once you hit the comment section, it's like, okay, this is where chat's going with it, but it's just ridiculous because you almost have to be on guard or on point a little bit to like allow for you, like, okay, where's the faction that I'm kind of like permeating with, like where are our numbers, what are the likes, what are the hearts, what are our laugh reacts, like kind of do some tallies real quick.
Those are my favorite ones where it's fairly even and you get all of the reacts, so you get the whole rainbow of reactions. Because then you're eliciting all the emotions, right? I like to strike a lot of nerves.
Well, I'll keep that to be your job because that's why I went to you, because I don't like going on social media. That's why I was like, okay, Kalamazoo memes page, Joel, like he's good with that, Like,
well, it's cool to know that like, a lot of art is collaboration, and a lot of times you don't see the collaboration that went into that final product, and it's so easy to put like a face onto a product, when oftentimes that face has like an entire team of people, whether it's friends, family, production, you name it. Like there's so much that goes into what we do as art for that final 15 seconds of visibility. That's it's nice to see that as a process. The same for memes.
Yeah, absolutely the same. I don't know about calling myself an artist, but yeah.
There's artistry to it.
I'm only as good as my sources. And, I always try to bounce things off friends and get ideas from folks. And, just.
Well, I just wanted to add, because I was thinking about what you were saying about your roots here. The content shows that. One thing, it shows that you can't do this with AI.
Right.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about one we were looking at before air about Pete Hegseth putting the information in the
Signal chat
group chat, but not the friendly one. I mean, it shows that the community. You're drawing on real life, everyday things we experience. It's not corporate. It's not AI. It's real life people who really live here.
Yeah. Yeah, I always joke. I think it's hopefully common knowledge that I didn't even grow up in Kalamazoo proper. I grew up in Delton, outside
Oh,
of
you're
Kalamazoo.
a Delton guy?
I'm a Delton guy.
Yeah, my family went to church in Hickory Corners in Delton area.
Hickory Corners area, even
Yeah.
of Delton. My parents live on Gilkey Lake
Okay.
in the country.
Milo?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, Milo Bible.
There we
That
go.
was back in the day.
Oh, goodness.
We're getting close to wrapping up.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I did.
No.
I know, it's good. But
started.
before we wrap up, a couple times we mentioned the Toxic Action Lab that you do some work with. Before we wrap, can you just talk a little bit so people know what that is, and then give contact information as well?
Sure, yep. So the Toxic Action Lab was started by Dr. Jennifer Johnson at the Michigan State University Department of Community Sustainability. And we are a group of graduate students, undergraduate students, and community activists, community engaged people, and people who work in community sustainability in multiple communities. So not just in Otsego with the Story Project now, but there's me here from Kalamazoo. We have partners from...
Is it Kalamazoo County like centric, or is it outside the county?
Well, we actually have partners in Kokomo, Indiana as well.
Cool.
So we're branching out to pretty much a lot of different communities that are dealing with legacy contamination. Because what we're finding is that there really isn't a whole lot. Like when there's a community that's suffering from this, they always feel like they're the first one.
Yeah.
But they're not. And so we're putting the people together in their different stages of what they're going through, so they're not feeling as alone, and so they're not feeling as unsafe when these issues are coming up or being politicized, because it's an issue of public health. So that's kind of what we're there to do, and give people some peace too, because sometimes they get peace from it. For instance, I was able to get out air purifiers to people in Kalamazoo through grants. So, we're writing papers and having access through universities. We're able to pull in resources like that as well. And so it's not just, so our communities are not just the academic side or that money side, but then they're also the meme side or the funny side or the public media network side of how we get it out there. So it's just all a part of one big community, and hopefully finding ways of becoming a better America, because we're looking to heal these social safety nets that have holes in them. Because again, it's like when I first talked about this issue and fell into this issue when we were talking about it earlier. I never thought as a DJ and as a librarian that such an issue would end up on my desk to where it would be like, okay, like I can't not tell my neighbors that there's something wrong.
How do people get a hold of you? How do people get a hold of your group?
So the best way for these, we are toxicactionlab.org. Check us out. Feel free to Google Otsego Story Project. There's been a lot of really good news releases recently for that. We're still dealing with some of the issues with grants that people are running into now, but we allegedly we've received it, and we're starting to try to do work. Good. So it's just people are excited to get it out there, but it's taking longer than we wanted it to because of everything going on. And then in terms of music, T-Dancer Music on Instagram, and that's how you find me.
Joel?
How you find me?
Yeah, how do we get a hold of you?
Well, first off, breaking news, we're revealing the identity of Kalamazoo Memes.
Breaking news. You can find me on all social media networks as Joel Oliver. On Instagram, it's Joel Oliver 100. That was a funny joke like 5 years ago. And obviously the Kalamazoo meme page. Yes, there really is a Kalamazoo meme page. I also have one for Michigan, Pure Meme Again. It's more difficult to do niche stuff about Michigan. It's a pretty massive place, obviously. 2 peninsulas worth of fun. But yeah, you can check me out on all of those. I also do music under Social Circle. We throw a monthly party here in Kalamazoo. It's pretty great. And yeah, Joel Oliver for that as well.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on the show. It's nice to see like how both of you coming out of music led to some really interesting collaborations over the years.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.
Yeah, thanks
Super
for
great.
having us,
Thanks for
sure.
having us.
Yeah.
and please don't make us the subject of a meme.
No. Only good ones, right?
Right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right.
Boop.